And hit the light.
You made me sad.
And you are on.
Alright. My retail analysis is on Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, more specifically the HD version, which has some differences, but not in regards to what I'm actually going to show you. First of all, the game was made by Nintendo and published by them. I'm going to be deconstructing the level design and puzzle design aspect of it through one singular dungeon. But before I do that, I should at least go over what specifics, what I will be going over, should I not manage to get through the whole level. Let's check time. Okay. So I'll be going over the environments, the specific puzzles, like the environmental things you have to move around or use a key to get through. Go through what I like to call the Zelda loop, but can probably more be hammered down to like the Mario rule of threes. I'm going to be talking about the enemy placement and how it affects the level, the difficulty progression, and the way the game teaches you mechanics without overtly telling you. This is probably like the last Zelda game that really did that.
This one's the last one?
Well, I would say so, because everyone afterward started giving you companions back and then being very blunt about everything you have to do. So, and then the level design itself, and I'll explain how the spider structure works. I didn't make that up. A lot of the images I will be showing are from the first Zelda, actually, just for the sake of showing you quickly, because a lot of the lessons can still be learned from the very first Zelda. But there will be some from this actual game in here, especially when I show it. Okay, so what I call the basic Zelda loop for completing puzzles throughout the dungeon is you get introduced to a new obstacle. In the very first instance, you encounter a block per se. Then you figure out, oh, I can move the block out of the way to progress through the level. Step 2 is repeat the obstacle in a new way, in which you figure out, oh, I can continue doing this, it proves the same result. Awesome. Then, the third way is you get introduced to that same puzzle, but in a new way, oftentimes with a different obstacle altogether counteracting with it. Sometimes you have to solve it using some new skill you just found or acquired in between there, and then repeat with like increasing difficulty and such. But it can all be boiled down to basically locked path, find a key, unlock path.
What was your last line on the prior slide?
Oh.
Repeat the version of obstacle. Oh, with new elements. So that's where they kind of combine
them? Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So basically, thing, solve the thing again, solve the thing again in a new way. And then that teaches you a new element. That new element gets expanded upon. Repeat, 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 repeat. And here's more specifically the puzzle I'm talking to you about, which I will show you. But at the start, top left, this is the first thing you ever encounter. I don't believe the game ever teaches you how to push blocks before this, so you're just given this room, no hints whatsoever. But you can find it pretty obvious to what to do, just because there's only a few major objects in the room. So you approach it, it gives you a little prompt that says grab. You can then grab and then push in a direction, move one block out of the way. You find that it still hasn't done too much, and then you just move the only other block that has to be moved. Done, you've solved the puzzle.
The level also too kind of helps, right? Like
yeah.
Showing the...
Exactly.
Well, then you also have a bit of external consistency, at least with idioms in idiomatic thinking of rolling stone gathers no moss, and the one that doesn't move is all covered in moss.
Yeah, I think
I was also going to point out that if you might not be able to see it too well with this. Sorry, my pictures are kind of crummy, but there's actually a little divot here that kind of points out this block will only move in one direction. So it's not like you can move it across the entire room. So again, it just kind of teaches you this thing in like the easiest manner possible before it kind of throws you into the wild. The next example of that same puzzle later in the dungeon is even simpler, but you fall down into this pit. There's no other way to get out except one obvious little block there. You remember, oh, that's kind of similar to what I just moved before earlier in the dungeon. Pull it, but then you also learn another vital lesson. You can climb on top of things. And from there, you can also leap to get to your next destination. You've just learned two things, which will be applied much later in the dungeon.
So is this? Oh, this is inside a wall.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a wall. I get it.
Because when you fall down into there, there's nothing there until you fall down and see it. Then it's like, oh, I can do something to get out instead of falling to my death in the lava.
So you pull that off in the wall so you can climb up and then you can hop onto the.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Oh, so that there, right there too is an indication that there's something there, right?
Mhm.
And you've already learned that from before.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And mind you, jumping in Zelda is automatic, so there is no jump button. Well, with some exception. Well, I mean, you just run to an edge and you jump and you automatically grab and climb and whatever. It's simple because.
Push a button and feel like I'm actually a master of my own destiny.
But Zelda is not a platformer, and they want to distinguish that. So. And then here's like the mastery of that puzzle, where there are several blocks. And you kind of got to figure out, oh, well, crap, what do I do now? And you just kind of, and through sort of trial and error, you just kind of figure out, oh, I can just pull out all of these blocks, and then in some manner they create a larger staircase in which you use the climbing skills you learned earlier to get through it. So in a way, it kind of teaches you all this without having to really say anything, and just keeps getting increasingly more difficult just by the means of you using your brain.
So what's the puzzle on this one?
I might or might not be able to get to it, so I'll just explain it. Like, all of those blocks are are stacked vertically on top of each other, and it's still a really simple puzzle. You can only pull out that bottom row one space forward. There's again that little divot that like blocks them off any further. So you pull one, and then you see like one row will like fall down because of gravity, and then from there you can kind of think, oh, I can do something similar to the other one. So you pull out the other one, does the same thing. Pull out the other one, does the same thing, and then from there you can pull out, I think, the middle row as well, and you essentially create a staircase. So there's really no way to fail that, because it encourages exploration. It's not like, oh, I pulled these out the wrong way, I gotta like reload the dungeon or anything. So it teaches you without punishing you too hard about it. Now the level design of Zelda kind of goes about two different ways. In the original, they kind of did this illusion of exploration, where you would progress through a level in a very linear level, but there would be certain points where you would come across, say, a wall you could bomb if you figured out how to do that, and then you could just cut through the path more easy. Or there were side paths you could go to and get like an incentive extra item or something, or even like a hint right there. Now, while some of the 2D Zeldas still go with that method, the 3D ones like Wind Waker go for more of a spider-style approach. That was coined from some guy on the internet. The 6 parts of that spider would be the entrance, which is obviously like the first room I just showed you, which also might have taken a considerable amount of effort to get there. I'll go into that a bit more once I actually show the level. The spider body, in which the main room almost acts as a central hub to where you will keep coming back to, almost to see, oh, there's my goal. I need to get to that somehow. But here's this big room to explore. But then, to make it less disorienting, it has like spider legs you go to, which are a series of multiple rooms, kind of in a sort of linear branching fashion that may or may not lead into each other. A room with a key. Within those spider legs, you will find what this guy calls a key, and a key can be many things. It can be either A, a literal key to open a door somewhere else in the dungeon, B, a puzzle that you have to solve, like that block pushing one, C, fighting a whole bunch of enemies to unlock a door, or D, finding like the key item in a dungeon, which comes down to a new item. In the case of the dungeon I'm going to be showing you, you get a brand new item called the hook, the grapple hook, which is essentially just like a rope and like a little hook at the end that you swing onto high objects to swing across chasms. And the big rule of Zelda is if you get that big key item, you're going to be using it to backtrack throughout the dungeon, and you're going to use it on the boss. It's kind of like a consistent rule, at least until the latest Zelda, which is different.
Different good or different bad?
Different, very good.
Oh.
I'll go into that later if there's more time, but and finally the spider head, as it's called, which is the boss's lair, typically can be seen from the body. So to give you a better picture of what this looks like, here's the specific map I will be going through, where this is the beginning room, this the entrance, still getting at like this would almost be considered one of the spider legs. Here's the body, and at a certain point, like right as you enter the room, your attention is drawn to like some focal point, indicating that that's probably the spider head or boss room. And throughout there, you need to go through a series of the legs before you can progress to there. So non-linear game design, but actually, well, the illusion of non-linear game design, but actually quite linear, which is better shown than actually really explained. Okay, and enemy progression. Another thing that that's pretty essential to Zelda dungeons is the use of enemies, because if it's done well, Zelda enemies always have a purpose either throughout a dungeon or a certain environment where they'll be most useful. For instance, these choo-choos, or jellies, or whatever game they want to call it in, they have the ability to jump and fall from ceilings. Now, these two situations are used in different ways in ramping difficulty throughout the dungeon. In this part, you see that that little red spot near the top is where the choo-choo falls from the ceiling in a very tight hallway, almost forcing you to encounter it. In a different instance, that same enemy will be used like climbing a ladder, in which you will learn it can leap at you, except when you're climbing up the ladder, it kind of leaps over you, kind of saying, hey, that could have hurt you if you had not been under its arc of jump, although it is still possible to hit it. If you go up quick enough. And again, a classic example of enemy ramping that's pretty much still applied to this current Zelda is the way they never use the same combination of enemies and obstacles twice. So at the beginning, this room 2 here, there's 3 bats in the room. Kill them, you get a key. Room 3, there's 5 stall foes with 2 large blockers. So it kind of gives you a little blocking power from their bone throwing ability. So it's not so hard. Room 4, however, there's only 1 large blocker from the 3 stall foes you'll encounter. So it's significantly harder, even with the less amount of enemies there are. room 6 has 6 bats, which is significantly harder than 2, and so on and so forth, using a different combination of environment and enemies. And mind you, there's not many enemies in this game, but using a different combination of everything, it makes it feel unique, so you're never encountering the same thing twice. And the same can be applied here. Another good example of how enemies are used in the environment are the bokoblins. It isn't shown right away because you do encounter these enemies in the wild before ever entering this dungeon, but one of their unique abilities they show off in this dungeon, which becomes important later, is that they can jump out of pots and they can break environments. And actually right after that choo-choo encounter, you're almost kind of forced to kind of skim along that wall. Now up until that point, you've learned that you can break those wooden walls that kind of look all rickety with your sword. But as you approach it, a bokoblin jumps out of one of the hidden pots and then breaks it for you, kind of signifying, hey, they can destroy environments too, and they can hide, which becomes significant later, where there's a room full of pots and you need to kill all the enemies, simple kill all the enemies strategy, but they're hiding, so you need to find them first, which mixes up just normal combat. And I believe, finally, my final point is the fact that the game teaches you the mechanics subtly, which, unlike some of the future Zelda games where it's like for instance, Skyward Sword, where it's like, Master, your health is low. The beeping health meter didn't already tell you that. Or Master, there's a 70% chance you have to go through this giant door. No kidding. In this one, they take a bit more subtle approach. Like, I don't think I have a good picture to represent this, but one of the things the game does is, again, rule of threes, which is easy to learn without having to really tell you anything. 2, it points out the obvious, like with that block moving structure, but still making you feel smart about it. And 4, limited to no text pop-ups, like I said before. And one of the more ingenious things, I think, is if you ever get stuck, Link does this little thing right here where he'll look at key obstacle environments. It's so subtle that it's, but it makes you feel smart because it doesn't tell you what to do. It just tells you that something needs to be done to that. Exactly. Kind of like the hint button in point-and-click adventures.
I have to spill the logs.
Not quite.
Set them on fire.
Yes.
Or you can be destructive, Bob.
It'll become more obvious once it's actually in context. Another good example. Fire is shooting out from this. It seems obvious, especially when you see it in action, but even before that shoots out, you kind of think, why is that spot darker right there? And then you see this happen, it's like, oh, that's why. I should probably avoid that.
But that also helps with the, because of the camera angle, if the player's not exactly sure where he is in perspective on relation to the ladder, that helps clarify that.
Mm-hmm. It kind of forces your perspective there too, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you may not be able to see that quite overtly.
This is the dungeon where the dragon is stuck in the hole, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Sucks to be that dragon.
Super fun dungeon. But yeah, instead of just saying, hey, did you know that fire can hurt you? It does this. And now, onto the demonstration. Bob, how do I switch over?
It should be just...
It's on the component line.
That's,
This one.
it's on component.
Isn't there a button that sometimes you have to press to switch over?
Yeah, I just tried that one. It didn't do anything.
Hmm.
It might take a minute, but we'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pause this for a second.
No, they patched that. Well, it's still kind of bad, but it's better.
That's good. Other games.
White balance, white balance.
I'd just like to say special thanks to my little brother for actually progressing to this point in the game when I didn't have the time.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out.
Man, I beat 2 Mass Effect games for my presentation.
Okay, disclaimer. The game before this point teaches you a few things. It teaches you combat, it teaches you how to use bombs, and a couple other things I may remember along the way. But that's kind of important on how the design of this level is stretched out. That it kind of assumes a little that you remember what you just learned earlier. So, again, this first puzzle, you remember me talking about it. There's the little divot. I obviously can't move that. There's no contextual basis for that. Oh, but I'm getting distracted. Here's pots. I can break pots. But I can move these. Can't move that because it's not in the rivet. I can't move this way because, again. However, this can be moved.
What's he even grabbing onto?
Yeah.
Magic.
The graphics are so much nicer.
And if you see, there,
Hey, it's the
there's a
dangle
space there.
dangle mesh on his
It's
head.
wobbled in
Yeah.
the original too. There was a great write-up on the original GameCube where they broke down how they did all the graphics.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
It's really amazing what they managed to do.
All right, so looking at this before going into there, what do you notice?
There's a smoking pot.
Yes, there is. Unfortunately, though, that's not important. That's kind of one of the deceiving things I didn't like about this.
The pot's in the upper right.
It's on a Steam then. There's the 2 guys holding the fire.
Yes, 2 guys holding the fire is what I was looking for, because that becomes relevant in a moment. Like, hey, they're carrying fire sticks.
I'll beat you up with my sword.
You can drive a boat in the same way.
And again, at this point, we've already been taught combat.
Ooh. Headshot.
All right, now, if you look, oh, look at that. They dropped their weapons. Hey, I can pick it up. Woo!
Now I can kill them with fire.
Exactly. I can break stuff. Oh, but
Your fire
it
went
just
out.
went out. What did I do?
Apparently break
I can
everything because you're mad.
Yeah. So I don't know what to do now. Oh wait. Like I said before, there's a little contact. This one not so much, but
Well, there's the long-term external consistency of Navi, the little crappy moth thing, and the moth is now floating around the fire.
yeah, that too.
I wouldn't have noticed that.
Actually, I didn't notice that either. Good. Thanks for pointing that out. But like I said before, this item's important, so Link starts looking at it, even if you ignore ignore everything else. You kind of walk by it and he'll just briefly look at it, kind of like, oh, that's important. So, walk around, notice, hey, that torch over there is kind of lit up. Why aren't these? Why are these two right next to this weird pedestal that sticks out quite a bit in comparison to everything else? Well, again, Link's looking at it, indicating that something can be done. My stick's not on fire anymore, so maybe something has to be done with that. I notice that this is on fire. I'm gonna go close to. Oh, I have fire. I'm Prometheus. I guess I have to light these on fire. And boom, puzzle solved. Now suppose we hadn't figured that out in a while and we just want to blaze straight through the dungeon. You'll notice right away, oh, this door's locked. There's a big key in the door. I need to find some way to access through here. And for the sake of argument, how Randy pointed out, this is probably the biggest thing standing out in the middle of the room, which unfortunately gives a mixed message. That's one thing I don't like about this level design. It does nothing. And you don't know why it does nothing until later, which I guess keeps your interests up. But, open the chest, there you got a key. You figured it all out by yourself.
Yeah.
And for the sake of showing you something else later, you'll notice that these pots are a bit different than the others. They're spouting out water.
Mario.
They have water within them.
Oh my god, you can put out fires!
Yeah.
So what happens if you put out the fire? Do you
Yeah.
die?
You actually can't put out that. I don't think you can. Maybe you can, but it's not important right now. It's supposed to keep your interest for later. So let's go through the door.
Disregard, Bob.
Stop thinking.
For this, and because Link is so obsessed with breaking things and pots.
Dude, he
That's actually one way I usually test if something's important. I'll smash it, and if it respawns, I'm like, oh, I need to use it.
It's like,
That's
he
legit.
throws a rock hard enough to break it. Somebody needs to draft him for the MLB.
That's actually
Now-
a good way of breaking too.
Yeah. And if you missed it, I just threw a pot into that rickety looking wall. Had I kept going in sword frenzy on it, I would have eventually figured out that's how I get out, seeing as that's the only exit. Again, that teaches you, oh, see, now it's pointing out that. But like I said before, this is pointing out that you can start breaking things with your sword. Now, back to that, where it clearly just pointed that out to you. That's important. You can't get to that right now, and there's giant shooty fire going at it, so it's a little intimidating, but you can get to that eventually. Skulls. I can break skulls too.
No,
There
respect for
you
the dead.
defiled
None.
the dead.
Crack some skulls.
This door over here, it's locked. I don't have any more keys. Darn. This chasm. I don't know how to jump. I'll just go for it. It jumps automatically.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can do it again. Nope, I don't jump that far, just barely.
And since you can't jump, you can't sit there trying to get up to the list.
Exactly, because if I try jumping down there,
Damn.
You need biosuit.
That's graphic.
You need what?
It's biosuit.
Oh.
It's red.
yes,
Yeah.
walk through lava, it's the best.
God, they're bats.
So, back to this. We just learned about moving blocks before. Let's try applying it again. Oh, look at that. And now I climb up on it just by moving forward against it. I just learned how to climb. And then perhaps I can use my short jumping range to get to there.
Oh, and now you learn how to climb up too.
And a little more subtly, the game also just taught me another important lesson to be taught later. You don't pull yourself up onto things automatically. You kind of have to press forward once again to get up there. Now,
Go for it.
go forward. I can make that. There's a bat.
That's bad.
No,
Oh, you had a boomerang to stun them.
not yet.
Hit him with your stick.
Now, suppose I was a bit more reckless there. I would have learned that
Oh.
Indiana Jones style cutting of the bridge.
No,
Cut the whole bridge.
I don't want to, but this becomes important later.
Doug, cover your heart.
Karima.
Shocked it.
Now, this is the part where I said before it kind of requires a little prior knowledge to this dungeon, because right before this dungeon it teaches you how to use these bomb flowers. These bomb flowers, you pick them up and rock like crumbly wall stuff like that is shown. Hey, you can break those. So,
The bomb bracelet.
nope, don't need them. There we go. Path unlocked. And that's Zelda Tomb. Oh look,
Water
the,
jugs.
the water jugs that we found before, and lava. Well,
we can cool the lava.
perhaps.
Oh.
Correct.
Ooh, sweet. No,
Oh.
I didn't do it far enough.
Poor Link. He got his
Spot's
awards.
on fire. Alright. Just imagine I did that correctly the first time.
No.
Imagine I'm not failing terribly.
Switch doesn't allow you to do that.
Allowing you to do what?
Like the game that doesn't allow you to jump, it allows you to walk into the lava, and it allows you to jump and not jump far enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little touchy in that aspect. And I suppose something they could have done for that would be like maybe a small ledge or not letting you jump until that platform is made. But
What happens if you smash all those water?
oh, they just just wasted. And
Are you then trapped on this side?
that's the thing, though. Whenever you go into a lava, it makes it so you never get trapped. Because if you were to jump into that lava, it just respawns you right to the door you just came through. So even if you exhausted all of these jugs, they would all respawn, and you would as well. So you never get like stuck and broken.
You are.
Do you keep the loot that you?
Yeah, of course. You just lose a heart too. Look, I found a map. And you kind of can't see it, but it's on the bottom screen here.
Ah, neat.
So, in case you get lost, it helps you. Alright, let's get across here with this newly acquired skill. Now,
Uh-oh.
there's something up there. I'm going to climb up and see. Oh, look at that. I narrowly avoided getting hurt. And just for the sake of, I want to kill this thing.
Oh,
That's
We
not
just-
very strong.
Nope, they don't have to be. But what we just learned there is choo-choos can jump, and they have a specific jumping range. This becomes important in their own mobility.
how do you know they're called choo-choo?
There's an item later in the game you can acquire. Oh no, I'm wrong. Normally in Zelda games you can Z-target things and press a button and it'll give you analysis of stuff. But in this game it does like this really tedious side quest that you can do for obsessive fans where you take pictures. I think I actually have the camera here. Yes, I do. Okay, so you can take pictures of everything in the game. And what that does is you can give them to this guy and then make clay figures of he makes clay figures of them, and you can look at them and it shows descriptions and their names and what they are and ways to beat them. So that's really cool. I've never completed it. Oh, look at that. It's these both don't look rickety. They look quite solid. For the sake of argument here, I'm trying to hit it. No good. What happens if I go over here? Oh god! That guy just jumped out of a pot. But he was able to break the wall.
Yeah.
Why was he able to?
He has a machete.
Yes. He just dropped an important item too.
Wow.
Bum, 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 bum.
And there are two things you can do. You can swing, like it implies, but one thing it doesn't tell you that you kind of have to figure out on your own, so you can throw it too. Both equally as effective at doing things. Look at that. And there's choo-choos. And right there, it kind of teaches you, hey, this thing can also be used combat-wise as well.
You just
By
poked his punch.
forcing
Yeah,
combat.
he like swung back, killed it, and then swung forward.
Does it have like durability?
What?
Does the machete have durability? Or
No.
Red choo-choos.
Yep, yep. Choo-choo jelly. There you go. That's how you learn.
Why would you bring the machete with you to the rest of the game?
I'll show you why in a second.
So you have a better tool.
That a key. I don't know where to use it yet, but let's continue onward.
It seems like the power of the machete is offset by the fact that you drop it so easily.
And another thing we just learned, choo-choos can appear virtually out of nowhere, so be careful. But from before, oh no, they haven't fallen from the ceiling yet. Now, this is why you can't. Because Link decides, I don't need it,
I can't open doors.
and hold it.
Get my dramatic
Not like
Yeah.
Gordon Freeman can climb a ladder while wielding a two-handed gun.
Well, because Gordon Freeman evolved.
Well, he's got that suit.
Yeah, the
which
suit.
Probably has like arms that pop out to climb the ladder for him.
Mhm.
Climb a ladder with your legs.
All right, so there's more bomb flowers. Anyone want to take a guess as to how to break this? Application 2, by the way, of this puzzle.
Climb a ladder?
Throw a rock at the bottom.
Throw a rock at the bomb.
Yeah,
Rob
there's
says.
something at the.
Because you can't pick them.
Because I'm going to try hitting it. You can't hit it from here. Because you also learned that hitting the bomb flowers also makes them ignite. Again, a unfair thing considering they teach you that before this dungeon. But I missed.
Bro,
I'm good at Zelda.
Do you ever find situations where you do the right thing but it doesn't work like that, and then you assume it's not the right thing?
Sometimes. Like, not often though. Like, probably the hardest Zelda dungeons are because of that, where I'm doing the right thing but it doesn't work properly. But that seldom happens in my experience. Like, I know that's happened at least once or twice to me with the Zelda series, but for the most part, they really kind of idiot-proof it. Now there's the door we couldn't go through before. We have a key. All right. Now notice how we just went in a big loop. We went through the spider legs back into the spider body. And now we are in another spider leg, continuing the process until we get to the head. Oh look, those choo-choos just fell. That choo-choo just fell from the ceiling. See how they're in that claustrophobic hallway? I need to get through there and defeat them before I can get to that.
Ultra kill.
Now, let's go back here for a second. Now, you see that? There's a thing I can break. I know I can break it, but there's lava. I can't cross that. However, there's a neat little thing we haven't seen there before. I wonder what that does. I don't think I have any weapons to use against that. I can message people on Miiverse if I want, but that's not going to help. Yes. So, irritated, I keep that in my mind, and I think I'll come back to that later. Now I see pots again. It happens to me twice. Really cementing in your mind that those bokoblins can jump out of pots, and you should be careful.
Destroy all of the pot.
Then light stuff on fire.
And look, he dropped a wooden thing. Oh look, that door's locked, but there's fire. And a door I can't get through, but I couldn't find a big sword thing to, oh yeah, okay, thank you.
Now I have to ask, Is anybody concerned that the lessons that Nintendo games are telling people is stomp on turtles, break all the pots, and light everything on fire?
The process goes: light it on fire, then throw a bomb at it,
The morals of
swing a sword at it, and
Earthbound is disobey adult figures, light things on fire, and bash puppies with bats. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
and let's not forget about Pokemon. Now see there, there's a switch. I just stepped on it. It opened the door. Huzzah! We go back to
But
that
you still
later.
drop your.
Yep, still drops it. Alright. Soon after this, I think I'm going to pass it off to someone else because I think I've about made my point. And how are we on time?
Close to the end, I guess.
Okay. Well. We're back on a rickety bridge.
cut the bridge.
Oh.
Bridge. Cut the bridge.
I can cut the bridge. Okay,
The
fine.
entire bridge.
I should, just for the sake of showing people what it does.
No.
Absolutely nothing.
Whoa.
Dad.
For a second, you think
Absolutely
that.
nothing.
And then it comes back.
Obviously, we need the bridge.
Oh my god, what's that song?
Yeah.
No, something far more annoying. Now here's the fire thing I showed you guys earlier.
Mom from Mario?
Yeah, the penguin's mom from Mario.
I do.
Which one?
The penguin's mom.
Did you guys kill the baby too?
Yes.
Oh.
Now, that
You got
enemy
Captain, you
shows
got
up right above
fly.
us. We learned that it can fly. And some of my attacks aren't effective against it.
Oh, pretty effective.
It's a little
Poor bird.
Super effective.
it's a little less obvious, but sometimes you have to use attacks that are more vertically based. Yeah, like when you're learning how to use your sword, again, the game teaches you this beforehand. A normal horizontal strike is just pressing B. A vertical strike is holding Z and pressing B. And then like a stab is anything while moving forward. Now this is something the game also taught you beforehand, is how to use Metal Gear Solid sneaking techniques, but in a different application. We already know that fire is going to hurt us, but something we learned beforehand is we can press up against walls at any time.
Is he pointing his toes?
Oh, slide
He has no
faster.
toes.
Phew.
Yeah.
You need a bomb?
Yep, you need a bomb.
It said pick up.
I can pick it up, but I can't right now. I need the item.
Wow,
Again,
they totally
or-
just stole that from A Link to the Past.
Now, here's this ledge again. Remember when I pointed out that you can grab onto ledges, but you don't have to pull yourself up on it. You can
Oh
move
my
along
gosh,
the
that
side.
is so slow.
Now, suppose you tried pulling yourself up. I like that that this does this, because you can try using your prior technique of sidling around the wall, but there's that blocker there. You can't do it without that.
And he starts looking down like,
Yes. Not just that, but if you release the contextual press against wall button, you're automatically thrown onto the wall grab. So obviously you need to do something while on that level, and then you can pass through.
Sidle.
Yep.
That's it.
Da, 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 da.
Oh my god, there's a bomb.
There's one of those instances of it not working properly.
where did he try to go down and do it from
Like-
below?
Like I get my arc wrong and then it bounces. There you go.
I always like just holding the bomb and running.
Alright. How are we on time now, Bob?
Was there something more you wanted to show specifically?
Um,
or you just kind of walking through it?
Just kind of walking through it because I think at this point I've pretty much shown most of what I needed to.
Let's see the last puzzle.
Sure. See, like I said before. There we go, gravity. Now, if we wanted to, before this, we could see, hey, there's something through there. Looks like a doorway.
Yeah.
Disagree.
Pull everything. Now, if I really wanted to, I could try messing it up by not doing the obvious thing.
Don't do it.
But even still, it makes it so it's kind of foolproof just by the design itself. See,
Wait a minute.
yeah. So the
You can screw it up.
Hold that one back.
Yeah, pull that right one back.
You can't.
No, I can't now.
Well, can you pull the top one off the edge?
No, because that would mean you'd have to be floating. Because you have to pull things from either behind or push
Oh,
it forward.
Why can't you push it off the edge?
Yeah.
Oh, I suppose you can. Yeah.
Oh, naturally, Zelda logic.
Sometimes that
fail-safe.
works.
It's
Yeah,
fail-safe.
fail safe.
Damn you, fail safe.
But yeah.
So even if you don't think about it, you just start grabbing stuff.
and you just do.
So
So yeah, that's pretty much everything I need to really show. Oh, and here's the one instance of the game telling you something in this level. Filthy rats are at the.
There's one right behind you.
Yeah. I know they're annoying, but keep their wits about you. They're only rats. If you spread bait, and yes, they may. Be sure there's source of treasure with you. Why don't you try this? Ow. No, they want to steal mine.
Do you have any bait?
Yeah. Let's see. No,
Is there bait in that chest?
no. You have to like buy it beforehand,
Oh.
unfortunately. But see,
So
another
that tells you to come back to the dungeon.
pretty much. Like it's not incredibly important. It's more of like a hint system or hey, I'm low on hearts. Can I buy some? But a lot of the stuff is just so plentiful in the game that you really don't need it. Now on hero mode, that may be more useful because what hero mode does is you can't get hearts from pots, grass, or any other means. You have to use potions that you buy, making it a bit more of a stressful situation. Because honestly, if I went through this level the way I did, I probably would have died at least a couple times by now.
It seems like that one was worth the extra hint too, because everything else can resolve itself within this experience, whereas that
Yeah.
one can't. Like you have to leave and come back. So it's like, don't worry about this now, unless you have to.
And it's not really incredibly obvious either. Like, see, there's a hole there. I can't really do much about it. There are rats going around it. I wouldn't have thought to throw bait at a hole. So it is kind of nice that the game points that out where need be.
Did it say you get saddled by the hole?
Yeah, because it's not just contextual. I mean, you can do that move like, wherever,
Anywhere against the hole.
and you can do this too for crouching settling, even though you never use that. Wait. Okay, Ryan. All right,
Good. All right.
that's pretty much all I needed to show.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
So, any questions?